the conversation that we had last time where we talked about virtues, those are the ideals that I'm saying. That these are the a priori things that we're saying are good. So wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, right? Temperance being, being even keeled and not being ruled by your emotions, not that you necessarily abstain from alcohol, right? Um, and the Stoic flywheel is something that I was inspired to kind of elucidate a bit on after reading the book Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, which is a Hungarian psychologist who is actually still alive. I'm shocked now. I'm kind of, in my 40s, and I'm always shocked to find that people who wrote books before I was born are still alive, and that's wonderful. But in any case, flow is this concept of basically that you have a balance between challenge and skill, and that there's kind of a straight line balance between those two. And if you have too much challenge, you're going to have anxiety and it's not productive. And if you've got more skill than you have challenge, you're going to be bored. And so the idea is to kind of maintain some balance between challenge and skill as you go along. And I felt like this is a pretty cool concept, and it would be neat to try to generalize this. And I was reading a lot of Stoicism at the time, and kind of the thing that precipitated out of this was this concept that wisdom is the ability to make good decisions, to choose the right action, right? And I kind of read this as making plans for yourselves or for yourself and deciding what you should do, right? Like you can look at your life and say, I'd like to be better, in the following ways. I'd like to lose weight. I'd like to get in shape. I'd like to improve my job. I'd like to, get married and have kids or what have you, any kind of goal that you have. And I feel like you can decide what is the right thing to do with the wisdom that you have. And that's step one. And then step two is actually doing that, what you said, right? So if you said, all right, I need to limit my calorie intake, I need to start jogging, I need to do all these other things, well, then you can actually use your courage and temperance to get that done, right? And I kind of compress those together and call it self-discipline. But either way, I think it all makes sense enough. And once you have done that, then the third step is transcendence. So you look back on this and say, okay, this was my plan, and I engaged in this plan in this way, and I used courage, and I actually did what I said I was going to do, and here was the outcome. Now, what does that tell me about the world based on the plan that I made and the outcome that I got? Either it validated the wisdom that I had initially, or maybe it was different in some way and I need to update that, right? So it's this loop that you go through where when you accomplish one thing, you use the outcome of that previous accomplishment to then feed back and increase your wisdom so that you can make continuously better decisions and better decisions and better decisions. And you can apply it fractally, down to the tiniest system detail, or zoom out to your entire life and think about things.
Well, and this, the term that gets thrown around now because of Jordan Peterson is clean up your room. And
Sure.
Oftentimes that's used as a way to say, hey, before you go hold signs up and yell at other people about how they should change, you should clean up your room first. But also, when you really think about it and you have that concept of temperance, this is the thing that I don't think I'm uniquely suffer from this. I think a lot of people do. You decide, hey, I want to make some changes in my life, and you decide I'm going to make 50 changes all at once because I'm going to be a totally different person. And as soon as you get into day 2 or day 3 and you have either the anxiety about it or the boredom because you're trying to change so much that it becomes overwhelming, that then the whole thing falls apart. But if you start with, I'm going to try and make my bed every day for a week, and that being the only thing that I'm focused on, now you've got that block and you can put that in and then stand on top of it. And once I started to have that idea, it helped me, that concept of temperance when I'm deciding I need to change things, that was really, really helpful. And I think one of the biggest ones happened to me 2 years ago, I think, was when I did my first Sober October. And that was the first time that I'd ever been like, all right, I'm not going to have any alcohol. And like, since I was 21 years old, hell, since I was probably 19 years old. I don't think I'd ever gone more than a few days without having a drink. And that doesn't mean I was, falling down drunk all the time, but it was like a fundamental part. And having that block that I just was able to be like, I know I can go a month without it. And not only that, but look what I discovered through that. What else can I then build on? And I think that those are important things to challenge yourself to without going so far as being like, now I'm going to totally radically transform. I'm going to get my finances in order. I'm going to eat right. I'm going to clean everything up. Yeah. That's an important way to get that Stoic flywheel going, because once it starts going, there's no end to the number of improvements you can make.
That definitely sounds like wisdom to me. And a point to make about this, and I think we maybe hit upon this last time, but that you can recognize something as being wise, and it can actually be, good advice, but until it really makes sense to you in the first person, until you have done it and done the transcendence part of looking back on actions that you took that were physical things in your life that you can incorporate into your mind, I don't think you can really appreciate wisdom, that it has to be a first person, you did it yourself kind of a story, right? Like, how many people heard Jordan Peterson talk about cleaning your room and then just didn't do that, right? Like, did they get wise from hearing that? I would say not,
Yeah, and that goes with the term that you and I talk about all the time, beware of unearned wisdom, right? Because that can mean both, like, hey, somebody has told you this thing and you now act it out in the world as though you learned it. But when you add in that first person thing, it's like saying, if you try and apply the lessons to the world without actually experiencing them and looking back and saying, what of that was valuable, you may be stringing. Well, this goes all the way back to our rights conversation, right? So rights, I think, oftentimes are unearned wisdom when there are people saying that we ought to have a right to water, and then you go out and fight like hell for it, but not thinking about what are all of the things that need to go along with that and truly deeply understanding it. So those positive rights that young people take on is a form of unearned wisdom.
Yeah, or the book conversation, right? Like that your first person experience of reading the book and your mind painting the pictures of all of the things that you have seen previously, your idea of the rolling green hills versus anything else, right? Is that it kind of feels like the difference between a movie and a book there, like you were describing. Like, the movie is the unearned wisdom. It's like, it looks cool, it's nice.
Wow.
But then the reading the book is like really getting in there and making your mind crank on the ideas.
That is a damn good idea to end on, man. That was really... Thanks for checking out this podcast short. If you like this interview, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and hit that bell so you always get notified about this podcast. And if you're really interested in conversations like this, you may want to consider joining the Articulate Ventures Network. To find out more, go to network.articulate.ventures.